Cool. So the agenda's in the chat if you need it. I don't have too many project manager updates. Mostly it's just Climate Central approved the no-cost extension, which is uh, um, uh, which is great. And then, so that gives us to like mid-June. And we can keep on spending on Virginista and then figure out where else any leftover money goes. And then also sort of been pretty busy trying to get the job hiring stuff going. There's just been a lot of sort of back and forth and orchestration among the steering committee and other hiring committee stuff. And I was hoping to sort of lead the way with, or follow in the path of the other admin hire for all, that was edgy-wide, but that sort of stalled. So I'm sort of forging ahead and sort of figuring out as I go because I'm hitting new processes and people having questions and things like that. But we're making progress there. Okay, Toli, did you want to give a quick analyst update?
Not too much to update on. Analysts released a report last week. I think we talked about it, but if not, got some good coverage. Think Progress, The Hill, and Politico Morning Energy wrote it up. The Washington Post reached out to us. They're doing a piece about 1 year since the EPA's climate change site has been down. We passed that marker on April 28th. So they're going to be writing up and pulling from a lot of our resources. We're going to see if we have any good hooks for them, additional kind of reports that we've released that we might release to give them some breaking news as well. Other than that, report team is using Trello to manage report production, in case anyone wants to follow along. And we released a public comment about the Clean Power Plan proposed repeal. So that was the research team basically arguing that how can you have a public comment period where the idea is to get input from the public about whether or not this rule should be in place if you're removing resources to it about that would be relevant for the rule. So all in all, a lot of stuff going on.
Nice. And just quickly, I don't know if you saw it, but in the Climate Central channel, Toli, I pinged you to just give a pass-through for the monthly report. So, okay.
Thanks. I'll follow up.
Great. Cool. Yeah, so developer update-wise, not much to report. I did another pass on the system sketch, and so that's coming along pretty well. Dan and Rob, if you have capacity in the next week to take a look at it, just to make sure that there are any glaring errors, that'd be super helpful. I can share those links again, but it's all in Zeppelin. And I've sort of pushed it as far as I could, so hopefully it's getting to a usable state pretty soon, and then we can maybe add it to the repos. And everything else is sort of, I don't have any progress on those as well. Kevin, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Not much report programming. So I wanted to flag because we were waiting on a bunch of PRs and just flag out how we want to move forward of getting off Virginista, but I'll wait till everybody update. Just like a quick update on the steering committee side. I know Ray, your contract is is already done or it's ending really soon. So we're trying to organize an exit interview with you, just to give you a heads up, like trying to like gather some people that would have the time to do an exit interview with you. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, it ended this month. And I think also I'm supposed to write like a 1-page or like a final report or something. So I'm working on that this week too. So we can sort of, maybe I can try to get that ready before the exit interview.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be in touch like whenever we figure out who's going to actually interview with you, and we'll arrange a time. Thanks.
Cool. No problem. Thanks. Is that it? You have anything? You're good? Rob, do you want to go next?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Okay. That's me. This is my first week back on the day job. And FYI, I will be in New York next week, so I'll probably not be at the next developer meeting. But generally, I end up having edgy time in the evenings there because I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere on Long Island. So that's been fruitful in the past and might work out. I got Francis nominated into Edgy, and I gave him access to the AWS resources and made sure that that's all up the board. I don't get the sense that we have as much process around that as maybe we should, given like the possible financial impact of access to AWS. It seems like the process for onboarding someone into AWS is just have they been nominated into Edgy, and do we want to add them, which is fine by me and expedient for now, and I think the right thing for Francis. But we might want to think about making sure the steering committee is aware of that list as like a more special list than just the list of people who have access to the Google Doc or something like that.
Yeah, and speaking of, along those lines, Sarah reached out to me about we should be keeping a list of who has permissions to stuff, and I'm like, oh, we have that list. And then she found it, and I think she's going to bring it up in a future all Edgy meeting that we should probably look at it again and make sure it's updated. And I think she's going to give a call to that as well. So I think there's going to be a sort of another circle back looking at that. And I told her it's sort of functioning, but it's not like a great process.
Yeah.
And maybe we revisit that again too, because we had talked about it during that tools meeting we had a few months ago.
Okay. Cool.
And if Francis isn't in there, I can add him to it.
Okay. Great. So next thing then, can we go ahead and merge the PR of yours, Rob, that I approved, or is there anything else you wanted to do on that?
I haven't looked at or seen anything since 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, I think that can go in, but I'll give you a chance to agree that it can go in, or if you want.
Okay.
Kevin, what's up with your iterable refactor?
Oh, yeah. I couldn't get it working. I think the problem was that it's asynchronous, and I think that's what Rob was talking about because we don't have access to asynchronous iterables and stuff. So I think just using what the recursive function would be fine for now.
Okay, that's cool. Well, why don't we open an issue so we remember that if that starts getting slow, that we know why. Okay. So I think we should try to move, just to update Rob, CloudWatch is working on the testing deployment. The only piece missing from that is Redis. And I was wondering if you would weigh in on whether it's worth taking the same approach that we're taking with RDS and just paying Amazon, twice as much to not have to worry about deploying Redis, or whether we should deploy it. I'm basically set up to deploy it. I found an Ansible role that seems to automate it. Haven't had the 2 hours that it would take to debug it and get it up.
I think it's fine, but I think we should be cognizant of adding up the costs because while all our time is free, if the point of this is that we're trying to solve a cost problem, like half the problem with Virginista is a cost problem.
Right.
We're not solving it if we're costing just as much.
Sure. I guess what I'm trying to understand to help make the decision is the problem that Amazon is solving as useful in the case of Redis as it is in the case of RDS. In RDS, it's like they're doing automatic critical backups for us. That all seems really valuable. Yeah. Deploying Redis doesn't seem that hard, and none of the content that's in there seems as important. So I think it probably makes sense to just deploy it ourselves.
Yeah, that's why I did it that way and didn't worry about trying to do some more expensive service.
Yeah.
Because what we have in Redis is things that are, it's fine if it drops at all on the floor.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead that way then. So I'll try very hard to get that done in like today or tomorrow. And then I was hoping to have staging moved over before the next dev call. More likely like Monday, Tuesday next week, because I'll be on Long Island then this weekend. And then we'll aim for like 2 weeks after that, we move production or something. Does that sound plausible to you, Rob?
Sure.
Cool. All right. That's it for me.
That's great. Kevin, did you have some additional? You said that you had some additional, like some technical questions that you wanted to get to.
Oh, I just was curious, like so in my mind, I was just thinking about some of the next steps to get off Versionista. So the first two was merging those PRs. The next one was removing the include versions. I'm not sure Rob's capacity right now, but I thought like I could take a stab at that because we decided that we would just return an error if somebody goes to that endpoint. So I imagine I could just, like jump in there and learn enough Ruby to just return back a JSON error message or error package to complete that PR. How's that sound? And then the next thing would have been like pushing everything to staging. So it sounds like Dan's going to get that next week because then we would want to monitor all these new PRs and staging for a little bit. So I need help monitoring that stuff. And then the last I was thinking of was creating sheets. Does the analyst sheets because if we're turning off Versionista, we would have to like create those somehow from the IA info, or I'm not exactly sure what that entails, or do we need to do that?
All that has to be changed is the script that generates them from the database, and you can tell it what type of source is acceptable for the sheet as a command line parameter. And right now that's set to Versionista. So all you would change is to set it to any, or to set it to Internet Archive only. So it's just to change the command that's in the cron job.
Is that cron job running on Workbench?
Mm-mm.
Where is it?
Oh, no, Workbench is just a machine that I flip on and off for me to run things in the cloud. I think it's called WM Scraper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So that's running both the scraper and the sheets generator, which are in the same repo anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically Scraper is a bad name because it's just a machine that does random tasks that we need to happen regularly.
Right. Cool. I wanted to back up one question or one statement that Kevin had, and it's slipping out of my head. You were talking about, staging, monitoring it on staging. Who uses staging? Do we have analysts who like regularly poke that? No, we don't. Okay. But
We can. Yeah, we can. If we need to have additional testing, we can certainly ask them, but they're mostly in production.
Okay.
Yeah. The point was just to see if we're like getting the right versions from like the IA importing over time.
Okay.
I definitely need people to look at it.
Okay.
Right.
I had a long conversation with Tully, and one of the things that I was trying to get a sense of is how's our robustness doing right now? Like how often are the analysts saying, "Oh, the system's fallen over," or "This feature that was much better on Versionista is broken here," and it sounds like things were overall very positive. So our big blocking issues are just getting this DevOps stuff across the finish line, and then getting enough experience and monitoring on the IA stuff that we can actually switch.
Yeah, for at least the last month, I would say even the stuff they're finding is usually known bugs, or no, not even bugs, but like last week it was some XML rendering issues, and then so stuff we know about, which is good. And so yeah, thanks Kevin for chiming in on that. And then what was I going to say? But Rob, have you I know you get alerts when things hang and stuff like that, and we've always been encouraging them to say something if something is slow or doesn't load properly. And I mean, to be honest, I haven't asked them recently to remind them to sort of mention it if something performance-wise is happening. But are you still getting those kinds of alerts where you know something is hanging or a request fails, but they're not mentioning it?
Yeah, but it's not very frequent anymore.
Great. Okay, that's helpful to know. Thanks.
I mean, also anybody who has access to Heroku can add their email to those. It's super easy. So.
Okay. Yeah, I can. I can add that to get those alerts as well. So, is that it then? If we, just to confirm I understand correctly, if we fix those or push those PRs and then switch the sheets over, we can just start testing, and if everything goes, according to plan, then we're ready to move off Virginista. Is there any other technical work that needs to be done besides what we just talked about today?
Well, there's finishing and merging and then deploying the Python script that actually imports the data.
Right.
Sure. But I mean, there's no additional work.
That's a big enough chunk that I bet we'll find epicycles on that, so to speak, in the same way that we're now merging Rob's epicycles on top of getting everything to go into the database happily. But
right.
Probably a month or two, or who knows. But
yeah.
Totally. You were saying on a call.
There's always something.
Sorry if I'm throwing off the agenda too much, but just real quick. Totally was saying that since we have all this influx of money, that it might not be crazy to do a pretty lengthy overlap of Versionista and IA just to be safe. And that sounded reasonable to me. Maybe we don't want to rush to flip the switch now that we have this money.
Yeah, I mean, I still basically, I think it's a function of confidence. So, I mean, right, there should just be sufficient overlap, at least in terms of some testing that we do. But then it's really, I would say, some amount of time that analysts are using the new system and seeing what the bugs are, and we're going to learn pretty quickly how stable it is. And we need to come up with some framework to make a decision. But I would err on the side of keeping Versionista alive until we're really super confident. And there's some questions there also about Internet Archives taking snapshots for us. What's their expectation? Do they want us to pay them? I'd rather pay Internet Archive than pay Versionista, but if they end up saying okay, pay us $1,000 a month, that's still cheaper than what we're doing with Versionista. All these things just need to be discussed. I'm not foreseeing any major barriers, just that it might take some time. And go ahead.
So this, just to clarify, since I'm not in all these meetings, the status of this is, like we talked about last week, they're happily scraping everything that Versionista is scraping, that same list of URLs, and maybe and then some. But they have approached Edgy to say, could we have some of your money to keep doing this? But there's no necessary deadline on that. And then also there's a possibility of wanting to expand, in which case they would probably definitely appreciate some money, right? But in terms of the next couple months, we can do this transition without coming up with IA money, as far as we know.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, and to my understanding too, because after I heard about this, I sort of went back. I think this was a pretty soft request, months ago, January or even earlier, that Mark asked Lindsay, oh, hey, have you, is there money?
Yeah.
And I don't think they've ever, to my knowledge, asked again. So, it's not like it's imminent or we're feeling pressure to do that, but it is a service that they do charge other people for, and so it's something to be aware of. But yeah, funding wise, I mean, we can use the Climate Central that extended funding through June on Virginista, and then afterwards the $15K of Packard kicks in. So we have a lot more runway with Virginista. So money-wise, it's not a big concern. But I think originally there was some pressure too, because eventually Rob was planning on, or is planning on, taking his the bike trip, and the idea was like, could we get it going before he leaves? And that's something we can discuss on as an ongoing basis as we sort of make progress on the work too. So there were just sort of like a few vectors in our decision making.
I would also say, when you're thinking about how much we can afford to pay Internet Archive, keep in mind that while this infrastructure is free now, it won't be free at the end of the year. So remember to take that cost off the top too.
Infrastructure meaning AWS.
Yeah, and yet another confounding, or another thing to keep in mind is maybe we could convince IA to run that infrastructure on some spare compute that they have in exchange for taking some of our money for doing the scraping, right? So there's a couple ways you could move this.
Yeah, and also on this, while we're talking about IA, I did reach out to Mark about we're doing this whole hiring process too, and then we also recently found out that like we could in fact work with a partner like IA or someone else to try to buy someone of their developer time. I talked to Mark briefly about it a while ago, like way back in like January or something, and he said that typically they don't really write grants together, because I even broached them about like, hey, would you be interested in writing grants together for additional money? And they said they typically don't do that just because logistically, like they prefer not to. And then at the time I was like, well, what happens if we get the money, could we sort of partner? And he was a little like hesitant. I just think of previous experiences or something, like it's just something they typically do. Maybe they're just not structured to handle that. But I did approach him again in Slack. I haven't heard back from him yet, but I don't know if you've been following the news, but the Internet Archive's been in the news about this lawsuit from MSNBC journalist who was claiming her Blogger thing got hacked, or the Internet Archive got hacked. And so I think he might be slightly distracted too, but I'll circle back with him again, maybe after this like news cycle ends and everyone moves on to the next like internet hot topic or whatever of the week. Cool. Kevin?
I just had a quick side question, but so the machines that the scraping and the sheets are on, that's like a AWS machine somewhere? Dan, you can, okay, cool.
And then the last quick update I can also give is I was emailing with Greg. Oh, sure, Rob?
Oh, I just wanted to say that with regard to if we have more time to do the changeover, probably a feature that would be very valuable there would be to get done that work of a settings panel and have a setting that says only include data from, and at some point we're just going to switch it on everybody to Internet Archive, and then they can flip it back manually if they want. But that's a good vector for sort of being able to say, basically making it obvious that it's doing well enough for people or not, because it'll be harder for them to fall back to getting what they had.
And I did give them a heads up of some of the stuff that's coming, and shared with those links that you posted, Rob, on ones you already did in your ingest, the bulk import, so they could sort of see what that would look like. I haven't gotten any reactions from them on it yet, but I can ask again. So they're sort of, we're prepping for that day, so that it won't just be like a sudden like, what, I have like 10,000 versions that I need to like understand what these are. Cool. And then, and so I was emailing with Greg, and he was like in a car in Arkansas driving to Boston. He's moving there, and he picked up a full-time gig. So it looks like his availability will sort of decrease again. He didn't really, he said he apologized for not really being able to contribute much, or if anything yet. and he asked me if there was anything small that he could work on. So, he was working on that I forget which number issue, but it was like the carrot one. So I said, well, if you've thought about that and you can kick it out, why don't you work on that? And then also I mentioned another like small contained DB ticket on like the email template, which was really just already set up. We just had some new text. So I'll see if he can work on that, but it's too bad because he seemed pretty engaged and like a nice person, but that's the way sometimes these things go. Cool, Dan. I'll circle back with her afterwards and see if she needs anything. Cool. I know some people had some hard stops at 2:30, so is there anything else? No. All right, excellent. Okay, thanks everyone. I will
Thanks, all.
talk to you later.
Thanks, guys. See ya.